Welcome to For the Purpose Of, the podcast where we navigate the intersection of technology and the world of education. I'm Keith Tramper.
I'm Katherine Fredrickson.
And I'm Sarah Wood.
Today we'll be talking about what it looks like to be a digital citizen today and our favorite digital citizenship resources.
As we always like to start off with a little fun intro question, we're kind of flipping it today and we're playing a little game. So we are going to play a game of What Am I? I admittedly am a shower thinker, and I am also obsessed with the show Outlander. So some of the thoughts that I have randomly are like, how would I describe something modern day to someone who lived in like 1745? So that's kind of where this came from. So we're going to take turns describing a modern day object that someone from 1745 might not have any clue what that is or be able to like wrap their head around it. So Katherine is going to start us off with our first object.
All right. I am a symbol that conceals secrets, much like a coded message. To reveal the information I hold, you need a special device similar to using a cipher. My design is a square with intricate patterns, much like those on a map or decorative design. I enable quick access to hidden knowledge, like finding instructions in a journal, and my purpose is to unlock information instantly without lengthy text, bridging visual symbols and useful information.
Oh, I think I got it. Do you have it, Sarah? Okay, my guess is QR code.
Yes! Oh, got it!
Yes!
Good job!
10 points for me.
That is a great one. I am not good at my own game.
This is fun.
All right, here we go. I'm a small box about the size of a small storage chest with a door on the front. I'm like an enclosed hearth that heats your food. Instead of using fire or wood to heat food, I use invisible heat sources like sunlight, not witchcraft. Don't burn me at the stake. I'm not hot to the touch on the outside, so the hearth stays cool while your meal gets warm. I heat your food quickly and evenly so it can be ready to safely eat in a matter of minutes.
I actually know this one.
Yes, what is it, Sarah?
A microwave.
Yeah!
Yes!
All right, Sarah, you're up.
Okay. In water I thrive. Just watch me go. I help you set your goals and keep you on track. With heartbeats I measure and sleep I can see. With health insights galore, there's no looking back. Tracking your steps from morning to night. I'm worn on your wrist in a stylish delight. Any guesses?
Smartwatch?
Yep.
Is it?
Nice.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. Well, thank you for playing, guys. That was kind of fun. I think that that's something that could easily translate to doing with students or even like professional learning inclusion activities.
Yeah, I hope our listeners enjoyed that too. They're probably screaming at us in their cars or while mowing the lawn or whatever they're doing. Maybe raking leaves. We're almost to that point.
They're going, Sarah, how do you not know this?
Okay, Digital Citizenship Week is coming up soon on October 14 through 18. So during that week, we see educators all around the world engage students in conversations around digital citizenship and what it means to live and thrive in online spaces. I know we always joke that Digital Citizenship Week is kind of maybe a misnomer. Like, we really don't want to teach digital citizenship 1 week each year. It's really something that's taught throughout the year through a variety of things and probably more integrated into the lessons that you do with your students. However, it's nice to kind of call that out during a week and really put some emphasis on it. So we've talked about digital citizenship in the past on this podcast. One newer item that I want to throw out there to maybe set this conversation is ISTE and Common Sense Education and a variety of other partners came together just before the pandemic and developed some digital citizenship competencies. So I'll quickly run through those, and then I'm going to turn it to Sarah to start sharing some of the ideas and resources that she's got. So there are 5 different competencies The first is inclusive, that our learners are open to hearing and representing multiple viewpoints. Informed is the second one. Evaluate the accuracy and validity of digital media and social posts. So that's kind of your media literacy angle. Engaged is the third. Use technology to be a force for good. Engage in those communities and do good things. Balanced is the fourth. Prioritizing your time and activities online and off. Usually screen time is a part of that conversation. And the fifth one is alert. Be safe and create safe spaces for others online. All right, Sarah, so what are your thoughts and ideas around digital citizenship this year?
So when we were first planning this, my mind immediately went to a unit that I did at the beginning of the school year when I was still in the classroom. There hadn't been any explicit digital citizenship learning or teaching that had taken place that all students had received. So that was kind of where I was focused on, just kicking the year off right, getting everyone on the same page. And that was kind of thinking about how we're going to, be in this class. And so I knew digital citizenship can be kind of wah, wah for some students. Like, it doesn't scream excitement at the beginning. So I knew I had to put a spin on it. So it actually turned into a 2-week digital citizenship / STEM unit where it was all themed around like Shark Week. So all of our activities were all around something to do with sharks. All of our digital citizenship, whenever I could bring in examples that related to sharks, I would do it. So like, for example, there was a video that came out that went pretty viral several years ago that was Michael Phelps swimming, and could he beat a shark? And so it was all about deep fakes at that point, But the way, I believe it was Discovery that had created that. And so I showed it to students, and like, we talked about it, and they're like, he seems so calm. How is he not feeling scared, racing against a shark? And so it just kind of led into that, and seeing some of those things that we, as Keith mentioned about being informed, the accuracy and validity of digital media. And so it was just a great conversation. And I feel like that resonated with them more than a lot of other videos that I could have shown. And we had great conversation around that. And then I was like, great. And even looking back at my resources from that time, if I were to teach it again, there are definitely tweaks that I would make just to over the past 5 years, things that have happened. And one of the podcasts that I listen to is called 1,000 Hours Outside. One of my personal challenges is just to get outside more. And this is a podcast that I follow, and I follow them on Instagram as well, that just give little nuggets of information that just make you think. But there was a great podcast episode that they had recently that was all about digital citizenship. And I was like, oh, the timing of this is perfect. And it featured Chris McKenna, who's the founder of Protect Young Eyes. And he had a statement that just really, it was one of those that as I was listening, I paused and went back and listened to it again. It just really resonated with me. He said, "You are more responsible for your child's future wellness than you are their current happiness. We make too many decisions today that are focused on current happiness, and life isn't always happy. Grow the most through hardship and difficulty." And I was like, wow, the fact that we are responsible for our children's future wellness more than we are their current happiness really kind of stuck with me, because sometimes we're just in that moment and we want to fix things. We want our children, our students to be safe, but we need that digital citizenship in place. And it's not an isolated thing that, okay, today is our one day that we're going to talk about digital citizenship and then carry on from that point forward. So it was just a really great episode. They talked about what is called second order thinking. This was presented by Erin Lochner. And she was saying that right now, what we're doing a lot of is first order thinking. We're kind of in that moment, going back to that current happiness. Should I allow them to have a phone? Should I allow them to be on Snapchat? Kind of that binary yes or no thinking. Those things that we can do right in the moment. But we're missing that second order thinking, that what are the ramifications of those first order thinking choices and decisions that we're making. So it's just really powerful to me. And I listened to the whole thing. And like I said, I paused it several times. And I highly recommend listening to that podcast episode, and we'll link it in the show notes. But what was also interesting to me as I was going through and listening was that one of our local districts was mentioned in it, because back in, I want to say 2018, 2019, Forest Hills Public Schools went cell phone free in their schools, and they referenced an interview with the superintendent at that time, Dan Beam. This was a pre-COVID interview, just talking about phone-free schools and how students can really just keep their attention on schools. And that just went, once again, just came back to the whole, like, if they are equipped at that, especially at that high school age with those digital citizenship skills, that balance of being able to keep their attention on school when they need to versus when, okay, I can have the time to, step away and have some time on my phone is really, really powerful, I feel like. So equipping our students at a younger age, but not just keeping it at the younger age, is important. And the final thing that they mentioned that I'll pass along here is they called it delay is the way. Kind of taking that slow tech strategy where that you are very intentional in using the right tech at the right time for the right age. There were so many points like that were just kind of those wow moments, because it phrased a lot of the thinking that I had that I just couldn't fully articulate. So highly recommend that.
Yeah, I want to go check that out.
Yes. Those are wonderful points. I'm going to actually piggyback off some of your ideas too. They kind of coincide with some of the things you have shared. And I really wanted to focus on some of the things that when I was teaching my students about Digital Citizenship Week and all those things, yes, it went more than just that week. I mean, we touched on these things all school year. They're just important things, and just reminding them to use good discretion and be good online citizens. So I really wanted to focus today on what our digital footprints are, some password security, and just media balance and well-being. I think these are some important things to focus on. So basically, when we talk about being digital citizens, it's a way of thinking online or being or acting online, thinking critically, not trusting everything you see, and basically being safe with your information and who you connect with. So it's more acting responsible in how you communicate and behave with other people and others online. And the digital world is a big part of the real world. So how do we become awesome at being digital citizens? So initially, we'll talk about what our digital footprints are. And basically, it's a record of all the trails or online activities, all the websites you visit, and what you share. So we get into talking about what's private information and what is personal. So we can share our personal information because it might be more general, like what our hobbies are, what our favorite things are, what our hair color is. But certain things like our full names, addresses, phone numbers, things like that are personal and are personal to us individually. So it's things like that we don't really want to share online. And once things are shared, they're permanent and they can be seen by anyone. So I'll explain, you can share something online, but once you try to delete it, it's still there in that digital world. So you really have to be conscious of what you're sharing. And, you want to protect your privacy and avoid risks. And, when you're posting things, you want images of yourself that reflect the best parts of you and your unique identity. So whatever you're posting, you want to identify ways that best reflect who you are. If it's going to be on there, it may as well be good, Also, creating passwords, I'll say, you don't want to include your name or any of your own personal information in your passwords. They should be memorable phrases. If you've got a phrase, you can use the beginning of each word, add some numbers, add some special characters, and convert a sample phrase into a secure password. Also avoid, clickbait and phishing scams. We always talk about, oh, you've won $1 million. You can, win a iPhone. And right away the kids will say, or the students will say, oh, they're trying to get me to click on that. Those aren't safe. So just identifying what looks too good to be true. Another big thing is, why is it important that we have device-free moments in our lives? And I think this is what you were talking about, Sarah, is becoming screen-free, getting outside. Digital devices are very distracting. And, you want to show respect for people. You want to be safe. You want to increase your concentration and also improve the quality of your sleep. So there's certain things like when you are walking around with your phone in your hand and you're crossing the street, it's probably not the safest thing you want to be doing. You want to be paying attention to where you're going. I've seen people walk into poles. Sometimes it's not the most safest, but it happens. And then, just having the respect for people. There's times it hurts other people's feelings if you're distracted and not paying attention to them. So if someone's talking to you too directly, if a friend is trying to tell you an important story, put down your device. Give them the time. It's important to pause for people and give them the attention they deserve. And also, it's really hard to give your attention to a specific activity, whether you're reading a book, doing homework, doing a craft. It requires full attention to complete the task. Having a device might make it harder to concentrate on what you're doing. And one of the biggest things is sleep. We all have quiet times when we're going to sleep or napping, and devices should be put away, but doctors do recommend that people stop using their devices at least an hour before bedtime because the blue light in the screen can affect how well we sleep at night. So it's a great idea. My advice would be to charge devices away from where you sleep so that you're not tempted to use it right before bed. I know it's hard sometimes, but it's important to get your rest so you can have a great day. So yeah, it's by striving for media balance, you can enhance your quality of life and maintain a healthy relationship with technology and media.
You touched on a lot of things there, and I think there's a lot of good tips you had. The password security side of things I think is really interesting. You mentioned the whole idea of a passphrase, taking a longer phrase and breaking that up into some sort of password rather than trying to make up some combination of letters and numbers that you won't be able to remember when you need to. One thing I would add to that, too, is not using the same password across many different sites.
Right.
I know for my wife recently, she had one of her credit cards stolen through one of these credential stuffing scams. They got it through one of her, I think, dining apps, like those Toast tabs or something like that, right? And then you take that password from there and drop it somewhere else, and now you've got access to lots of things. You can find their credit card numbers and all that. So it's just an interesting time we're living in because the scams get more complex as we go, and it's hard to keep up with. So it's best to make sure we're keeping on top of our passwords because that is often the first step to, a bad day or a bad week or month
That's
or year.
That's a bad couple of months
whatever.
right there.
Yeah.
Bad vacation. Bad vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one thing that Katherine said that kind of stuck with me, though, too, is like really having that device-free time. Like I said, I'm really trying to make an effort to be outdoors more. And even though sometimes I'm outside, if I have my phone in my side pocket, you still hear that or feel the vibration or hear the ding. And so it's hard to sometimes say, I'm just going to leave my phone in the car, because we think of how many things are tied with our phones. And I struggle with that simply because sometimes when I do go out walking on a trail or something, I don't always have a buddy with me. And so I always want someone to know where I'm at in case anything happened, just safety and security, kind of that. But also when I do go outside, a lot of times I'm geocaching. And so I have my phone on me or I have a GPS device. So it's like trying to make sure finding that balance of when I need my phone out and when I don't. But then another thing too on that is if you're not connected, what are you doing? Are you using it for self-reflection, kind of some of that, social emotional care for yourself? Are you engaging in conversation, just, looking out for your own well-being, whether, you bring a buddy with you? But if you don't and you're talking on the phone, trying to find that balance between what works to help support your own mental health needs as well as giving yourself that device-free time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're so right. I think one thing I want to caution, though, is not falling into the trap that all screen time is bad time, which I think is sort of what you're talking about there, Sarah, that a lot of it depends on the quality of what you're doing on that device. And I think we sometimes lose sight of that when we're just thinking about, I need to have less screen time, right? So another thing with that too is I want to be careful of, I feel like sometimes we shame parents for the amount of time that they put their kids on devices because we don't necessarily know the story behind why that kid's on the device or what they're doing on the device. I'll share my own story. I have a son with autism, and one of the things that is regulating to him is screen time, like being able to be on a device and control a environment in a world that he doesn't feel like he can control, right? So him having access to that and spending more time than most parents would probably feel comfortable with, is difficult. It's difficult to square and explain to other parents. And there's a lot of like parent shaming that sometimes happens with that. But I guess I just want to be careful of how we judge other people, right? And focus on our own internal needs and well-being around that media balance.
I really appreciate you saying that, Keith, because I think that there's so much, like you said, that goes into why we use screens. And I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing your personal experience, because I know that we are all coming from different walks of life and we all have different situations. And you might see someone in a moment, but you don't know what those 10 minutes were leading up to that one particular moment. And it's super easy to pass judgment on someone else when you don't know their full story. I know I'm big on device-free dinners, and I frequently call my children out if they reach for a device or anything, and we have a few exceptions, but we're not answering the door, we're not on our phones, like we are in the moment. And so sometimes when we're out, it's commented from my kids how many people are on devices, and I said, but that's our family rule, that's what we do. We don't know what's going on over there.
Mm-hmm.
I like that, Sarah. Device-free dinner.
Yep. It just rolls off your tongue.
Yeah. DFD. Device-free dinner.
Device-free dinner.
Okay. Well, I wanted to take a moment and share two other angles on digital citizenship that I think are pertinent to our lives today. One on artificial intelligence and how that's sort of shifting some of this conversation around digital citizenship. And the other being around computer science and how digital citizenship plays into that angle. So let me start with AI. And we've been talking, we typically call it AI ethics, and I think that's a pretty general term around the internet for things that are sort of leaning into the realm of digital citizenship. But what we're seeing is it seems to be between the potential harm and good that can come from AI, and also the representation of how AI devices are created and used and trained, that we need to think about some of those digital citizenship pieces with. So when we broach it in some of our presentations, we like to talk about things like, is AI really necessary? Like, am I just putting AI on this because there's a buzz term out there, and if I can put AI in my product, then people will start using it more? And I guess just being critical of, okay, does this really need to be an AI thing? And does it really add value by adding AI to it? But then also thinking about those potential harms and benefits, like how could somebody be harmed by this? And how could somebody benefit from this? Or how does this bring our society closer together or push us apart, right? Sometimes we have different tools that can really drive a wedge between us or push us into our own little echo chambers. And then lastly, that representation piece, thinking about, you might be seeing some articles about this because it's becoming a big deal. The way that AI is developed is based on training data. And a lot of times that training data that we feed it is biased towards one group or another, towards one idea or another, or it gets more and more biased over time based on the users that it has. So what we might end up with is further disparaging groups that are underrepresented in those. So we got to be careful of that when we're designing and when we're giving training data. Just be conscious of that. Recognizing who's missing from the development team, from the training data, and other areas that impact the way we design AI tools. Moving on to the computer science side of things, there's a whole core concept in computer science called impacts of computing. I think I've talked about it on the podcast before, but in detail, this kind of gets down to the culture, the social interactions, and safety law and ethics within computer science. So when I say culture, I'm talking about what is the impact of that technology, sort of that potential harms and benefits, and how we can impact those tools to reduce bias and improve equity. The social interaction side is, that being respectful and responsible piece of digital citizenship, but also just generally being able to collaborate with people from different backgrounds, different cultures, and different perspectives. And then lastly, that safety law and ethics is really getting at the privacy and security side. So cybersecurity kind of fits really well into this category, but also the laws surrounding that. There are a lot of laws and policies and regulations that impact computer science that are aimed at reducing bias and producing things that are more inclusive. So just a couple different angles to look at digital citizenship that I think are really relevant today as we're seeing more schools increase their computer science offerings and as we're seeing AI just play out in every single aspect of our lives.
I love that, bringing that AI component into this conversation, because there are so many different aspects to AI that it can seem messy at times, just thinking about all the things that you need to think about to use AI tools, and it's hard to escape it these days. You're seeing it baked into everything. I mean, your Gmail, your search responses. No one is really avoiding AI now with how it's becoming part of all the things that we're using. And even if it's something as simple as you do a Google search, it will give you an AI overview of what responses tell you. But are you looking at it through that critical lens? Are you thinking about, is what it's presenting me with biased? Is it accurate? And I think the whole AI component really lends itself to, are we as educators working to not only build our students' capacity within digital citizenship, but also AI literacy, because they really do go hand in hand.
Take a pause, enjoy the view. We'll be back with more for you. So sit tight and stay in your seat. We'll return with something neat.
Does cold weather and snow give you the blues? Let's spread some warmth and excitement through professional learning. By participating in EdTech Cheer 2024, you will learn about artificial intelligence and ways to leverage it in your teaching and learning, not only to save you time, but to prepare students for their future. This year, the timeline has expanded to give you even more opportunities to dig into content and try out new tools and strategies. Instead of the traditional 12 days, EdTech Cheer 2024 now spans 5 weeks. From November 1st to December 20th, you'll receive targeted communications focused on the 5 big ideas in AI. You will learn about perception, representation and reasoning, AI learning, natural interaction, as well as societal impact. Through this course, you'll get easy to implement strategies, scaffolded content, and activities to help bring AI into your classroom and professional practice. This learning is designed to challenge you to think about AI from new or different perspectives. Through participating in course reflections, you are able to earn up to 6 free sketch credits. Sign up today through the Ken ISTE PD Hub and join EdTech Cheer.
Sign up for the new season of Podcast PDX at bit.ly FTPO PDX to start earning sketches for listening. Submit your questions at bit.ly/FTPO mail and we'll answer it on air.
This episode's Podcast PDX question is, what was one aspect of digital citizenship discussed in this episode that resonated with you? Share your thoughts at bit.ly/FTPO-PDX.
All right, we are going to reach into our FTPO PDX reflection mailbag. And today we have a reflection from Leslie And Leslie states, I like to create class contracts with my students. I believe allowing them to have input on their classroom rules allows for them to remember and support each other in class discipline. Also allows them to have more input and feel part of the class. Leslie, thank you for sharing that. 100% agree. This is one of the things I also touched on our last podcast about having students involved and included in creating that classroom contract, and just that buy-in that they have and just how they feel included and that ownership part of it. What do you think, Keith?
Yeah, so as you're saying that, I'm looking back at those competencies we said earlier in the episode, and I think we're really speaking to being inclusive and engaged here, right? We're including all the voices and perspectives in the classroom, if done right. Let's be clear about that. But if we're including everybody's thoughts and opinions in the way that each of us learns best, that's a really important part to starting your school year out right. So I'm really glad that Leslie mentioned that. The other side is just being engaged. How do we behave so that we are a force for good and we help everybody in our classroom improve and learn and set the right conditions and environment for the school year?
Absolutely. Yeah. Everybody's voice is equally important, and it's nice to have everybody 100% involved in their classroom contract.
When I read Leslie's comment, it made me think of, it made me reflect on the work that I'm doing. And one thing that I'm really trying to be transparent about is using equity statements instead of like meeting norms or learning norms and professional learning. And I felt like that really kind of fit in with this, because we want all owners to feel agency and have ownership in what they're doing, kind of going back to those digital citizenship tenets, and that inclusivity is part of that. And I want every voice to be part of that learning experience, because if it's me standing there like just kind of spewing information for, an hour, like, gross. I don't even want to do that to myself. Like, I don't want to be that person in that session, So getting everyone involved really allows for that. And also, in light of the recent Ritzpitz podcast episode that was all about assistive technology, and I believe it was Katie Butsu from Bay Aranac area had mentioned about using accessibility statements. And so that really got me thinking as well, like, how are we being transparent with our students and how we're providing accessible learning options for them? Because maybe they need that, and maybe simply providing some of those options might reduce discipline problems that you're having. So I feel like that would hopefully help, between those equity and those accessibility statements, help everyone feel that they're a part of that class. And even though they might have not voiced a need that they need in their learning, that they're still valid and they're important.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Leslie, for your comment. It's really awesome to read all of our PDX listeners every week. So many insightful things that are shared there. And if you feel like you want to be involved, make sure you go check us out at bit.ly/FTPOPDX.
That's it for this episode of For the Purpose Of. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this podcast, we'd love it if you'd share it with a friend.
You can reach out and find all things EdTech at bit.ly/IamEdTech. That's bit.ly/IamEdTech. And we will catch you next time on For the Purpose Of.
This podcast is a service of Kent ISD, produced by Keith Tramper, Sarah Wood, and Katherine Fredrickson. Edited by Keith Tramper. Our theme music is Neon Nights by Scott Holmes Music, and our ad music is Vienna Beat by Blue Dot Sessions.
You try to have the inclusive.
Yes, got him.
If I could only get my mouth to work today.